Ah, behold! What we have here is no mere ripple in the pond of podcast politics, but a veritable tsunami of tension swirling beneath the surface of Joe Budden's famed podcast empire.
I like him a lot.
Also, let me announce to the audience and everybody here, Marc Lamont will be starting sometime soon. The thinking there is to give each of you, you included, Parks, we got the Park standing too, to give each of y'all a day off, like per month. That's fly, right? Why y'all don't look as happy as I thought y'all would? Y'all don't do that fly?
Listen, man.
You do that when
what you do.
I'm gonna knock you out.
They receive that the way I do it.
So is his contract ending when the contract is ending?
What do you mean? That would be unprofessional.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I'll read right through you. I'll knock you out downstairs. Corey, don't jump in. Don't jump in either, Corey.
Nothing to take all the days off. Not excited when I plan for y'all to get days off. I don't have nothing else that's important. I don't.
In the latest chapter of audacious moves and potential power plays, Joe, ever the provocator, dropped a bombshell announcement: the addition of the eloquent and academic Marc Lamont Hill to the roster. And oh, how the waves of discontent began to swell, particularly from the current co-hosts, Ish and Ice, whose facial expressions screamed volumes louder than their lips dared to utter. Let us dive deep into the subterranean tremors of this most curious development. First, we must give credit where it's due. Joe Budden, a man not known for timidity, has once again proven his mastery of stirring the pot. Marc Lamont Hill, a scholar of renown and a cultural commentator of razor-sharp intellect, is a formidable addition. But why, one must wonder, does this feel less like a celebration of collaboration and more like a Machiavellian maneuver straight out of *The Prince*? Could it be that Budden, ever the puppeteer, is subtly positioning himself to reshape the very foundation of his podcast dynasty, much to the chagrin of his current co-hosts? Now, let us turn our gaze to Ish and Ice. Oh, the agony! The thinly veiled discontent that contorted their faces when Joe announced Mark's arrival could not be mistaken. They sat there, silent as statues, but their expressions were akin to the crumbling pillars of an ancient temple. It was clear as day, these men were not elated at the prospect of sharing the spotlight. Why, you ask? Because the whisperings of conspiracy had already begun, was Joe Budden, the shrewd architect of podcasting infamy, laying the groundwork to replace them? You see, in this delicate ecosystem of media personalities, every move is calculated, every word laced with subtext. Joe's announcement was pitched as a gift, a gracious act of generosity designed to give each host, Ish, Ice, and even the stalwart Parks, a much-needed day off. Fly, right? Joe mused, expecting nods of approval. But what he received instead was a room thick with the weight of skepticism. A day off? Or a foot out the door? The silence of Ish and Ice was deafening, their hesitance as loud as a thunderclap in a library. And so, the fans, ever the astute observers of the podcast universe, began their feverish speculations. Was Joe trying to ease Ish and Ice out of the equation? Were these days off a Trojan horse for their eventual replacement by the esteemed Marc Lamont Hill? The questions hung heavy in the air, thick as fog, and the audience, ever hungry for drama, could smell blood. Joe, with the precision of a surgeon, had made his move, but what was his endgame? To understand this power play, one must delve into the psyche of Joe Budden himself. He is, at his core, a master of disruption. His entire career, both in music and in podcasting, has been built on challenging norms, pushing boundaries, and, most importantly, keeping his audience on edge. Marc Lamont Hill's addition isn't just about intellectual heft or diversity of thought. No, my friends, it is a strategic shift, a recalibration of the show's dynamics, and perhaps a signal that Joe is ready to move in a new direction, one that may not include Ish and Ice as prominently as before. But why would Joe, after establishing a solid rapport with his co-hosts, risk disrupting the delicate balance of the podcast? The answer is as simple as it is cold: evolution. Joe Budden is not content with stagnation. He knows that in the world of entertainment, one must constantly evolve or risk becoming obsolete. The addition of a figure like Marc Lamont, with his academic clout and media gravitas, positions the podcast to reach new intellectual heights, tapping into audiences that may have previously overlooked the show as just another pop culture commentary. And yet, the resentment from Ish and Ice cannot be ignored. These men, who have been loyal fixtures on the podcast, now find themselves on shaky ground. They are, in a sense, victims of their own success. For in helping to build the show's current iteration, they have also paved the way for Joe to expand beyond them. Their reluctance to embrace Mark's addition may be rooted in fear that they are being edged out of their roles as co-hosts, fear that their contributions are no longer valued in the grand scheme of Joe's ever-expanding vision. The real genius of Joe Budden's move lies in its ambiguity. He frames the introduction of Marc Lamont as a way to enhance the podcast, to give everyone a break. But make no mistake, this is no mere vacation offer. It's a chess move. Joe knows that keeping the audience and his co-hosts on their toes is essential for maintaining dominance in the podcasting game. And in a world where content is king, you don't sit still, you conquer new territories, you bring in new voices, and you keep them guessing star. As for Ish and Ice, their fates now hang in the balance. Will they rise to the challenge and prove their worth alongside Marc Lamont, or will they fade into the background, replaced by a new intellectual heavyweight who threatens to make them obsolete? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the dynamics of this podcast have irrevocably shifted. In conclusion, Joe Budden's latest move is nothing short of masterful, a textbook example of how to shake up the status quo while keeping the power firmly in your hands. Ish and Ice may be angry, they may feel slighted, but in the world of Joe Budden, emotions are secondary to strategy. Marc Lamont's arrival signals a new chapter, one that could redefine the podcast for years to come. And whether Ish and Ice survive this latest twist remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: Joe Budden, ever the puppet master, is still pulling all the strings.